Here we go. Okay. Wonderful. We just need to get my computer up here. Sorry, my computer working. There we go. Well, good afternoon. Thanks so much for coming. My name's Neil Schneider. I'm Executive Director of the Immersive Technology Alliance, which also the ITVR Council is part of. It's a complete honor to be here, to be working with FMX again in 2016, to be part of the program and so on. You know, maybe it's a good predictor for the day, because Jean-Michel Blottier, he just walked by and he didn't give me the thumbs up. He gave me two crossed fingers, so I don't know what that means. So anyway, so this is the plan for the day. I'm just going to give a really quick presentation. We're going to hear some wonderful information from Jon Peddie research about the future of VR from a sales point of view, and then we're going to get right into our panel discussion. Really excited. So let me quickly introduce our speakers. So this gentleman is Dr. Jon Peddie, Jon Peddie Research, obviously president of Jon Peddie Research. He is one of the top analysts in the world when it comes to graphics and processing technology. Of course, he follows virtual reality and immersive technology very closely. Big honor to have him here to answer our questions and to help us predict the future. To his immediate right is Daniel O'Brien, Vice President of VR Planning and Management at HTC. He also leads the Virtual Reality Business Unit at HTC. Just by a show of hands, how many of you have seen the HTC Vive in action? Okay, and I'm hoping you saw it in action while wearing the device, because that's a big difference. Anyway.
Second question, how many want one?
Okay, good stuff. So, wonderful stuff. To his right is Simon Benson. He's director of the Worldwide Studios Immersive Technology Group at Sony Computer Entertainment Europe Limited. So they're very much behind the Sony PSVR head-mounted display. Everyone, of course, is very excited about that. To his immediate right is Alon Melchner, who's CEO of Wakingapp. And Wakingapp makes software that makes it possible for everyone to create virtual reality content, among other things. So it's a big honor that he's here. He came in from travel all the way from Israel to be here. And finally, to his immediate right, last at the end, is Dr. Michael Madary, who's postdoctoral researcher for ethics of virtual reality at Johannes Gutenberg University Mainz. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. And he's the one who's going to tell us that we've all been naughty boys, because it's all about ethics and virtual reality. So we're going to learn a lot from Michael as well. So please, let's give our panelists a big round of applause. Good stuff, good stuff. So let me just share a quick introduction to the Immersive Technology Alliance. I'm going to share with you my personal view of the immersive tech industry, and this, of course, includes virtual reality. So I would describe the market as it is today as blasting off to the moon. And when I say blasting off to the moon, I mean we've loaded up with supplies, we've got some exciting technology, there's some investment, and this trip has two possible outcomes. Okay, the first outcome, not so good. We go to the moon and we find we can't actually live there. Once our fuels and our supplies run out, we're effectively dead, because there's no air, there's no soil to grow from, and we blow our one shot. I mean, it's a rare opportunity that the industry gets together to make something like this work, and if it doesn't work out, it's much harder to try again in the future. The other option is we thrive. And in order to thrive, we need viability. And viability means we sell to customers rather than investors. And in my opinion, it has to happen within the next 3 to 5 years. I mean, 10 years, I think, that's way off. I mean, I haven't personally even held a job for 10 years, knock on wood. But nonetheless, 3 to 5 is within reason. So the Immersive Technology Alliance and the ITVR Council is very much, was very much formed to help build that viability. So the way we do this is we have regular member meetings and working group sessions. So this is actually from our annual meeting, which we held during GDC 2016. This is a sample of our membership. And we also do industry building events. So the events are if you go in the state of California, very well developed. Certain parts of Europe, very well developed as far as getting access to the expertise. So what we do is we do events in parts of the world that are underserved, but equally viable. So some examples coming up are Immersed Mexico. We're actually strategically partnered with Campus Party Mexico. They get 20,000 attendees every year, which is a mind-boggling number. It's held in Guadalajara, Mexico, which is the Silicon Valley of Mexico. We're very excited about it. Like previous speakers have included the likes of Al Gore and Steve Wozniak, and we really want to help make virtual reality possible or content creation possible in that part of the world. So interested speakers should, of course, reach out. We're really looking for big ideas. This is a picture from Immersed Europe. We held this last October in Murcia, Spain. Again, very successful, nearly 30 international speakers from all over the world. This year in November, we're planning to do it in Valencia, Spain, in November 2016. And finally, this is where it actually all got started. In Toronto, Canada, it's been 2 years running now. We're doing it again this year in October at the Ontario Science Centre. And this is actually a picture. In this case, Discovery Channel and Tom's Hardware was moderating the panel. So we do all kinds of things to draw attention to immersive tech to make the industry work. And the last thing we do is we've been building an online community, a private online community for professionals that want to learn more about immersive technology and virtual reality. It's an experimental idea. And the core is that we want people to collaborate, but in a safe environment. So it's completely private and locked down. Everyone can join. The only limitation is press or media. It's got discussion forums, we do education sessions, there's blogs, we do pre-release research, so we try to share things that aren't publicized so members could share their own input or get early access to things before it's out there. And we really want members to write their own content. It's an experiment. I mean, people join up. It's always a challenge to get people to talk to each other. That's the real victory we're after. And what we've done is, if you look in your program on page 40, all FMX delegates can join to get 6 months for free, to try it out, to participate. And if we can get some real conversations going, I think a lot of exciting things could come from this. Anyway, it's in page 40. Last thing I want to talk about, this is more of a personal project. I run a website called Meant to Be Seen, or MTBS. That's where Oculus got their start, and some other products as well. And what happened was, I was at Game Developers Conference. I did all kinds of interviews, and I lost like half the content because I came back and my camera, the memory card got scrambled. So I was looking at my messy basement. I thought, you know what? Why am I working so hard? It would be great to bring all these top people into my basement. So we do, Skype video chats, but we do it in a really cool format. And the reason I'm sharing this with you today, and I know I'm looking at this audience who's really the top people, so I hope you appreciate the low-tech value in this. But I just wanted to show you some fun we've had with this, especially when you consider that all the animation and the work put into this was done by volunteers. So, and by the way, my basement isn't really this messy. That's like a technical special effect. So here we go. If it works.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is our first thing we are doing. What are we doing?
Oh, what a mess. So anyway, so that's just a personal project. But if anyone wants to be in my messy basement, I encourage it. Just reach out. We're happy to talk to you because there's a lot of great projects people want to talk about, and they don't get that opportunity. So now I'm done here, and now we get to actually talk to the main event. So I would like to actually start with Dr. Jon Peddie because he's got some wonderful research data to share with us today. I'm just going to pull a slide up. It'll just be a moment. There you go, Jon. So, there you go.
Good. Thank you. Good morning. Well, actually, it's good afternoon. Sorry. It's morning where I came from. So I just want to give you a quick overview of the reality of virtual and immersed and augmented reality. It's certainly a hot topic, but it's not yet a hot market. Everybody thinks it's going to be a hot market, and I agree that it is going to be, but the main obstacle to it being a hot market is going to be the content. I think we've pretty much established that we can build the hardware. We've got some great examples of that with Oculus and HTC and Aurora and a bunch of others, and Sony especially. But unless there's something to show on those wonderful pieces of equipment, it's going to be a who cares. And that equipment's not inexpensive. So for people to get invested in it, they're going to have some compelling reason to come and do that. And as of right now, I don't see that much content coming, and so I have a very conservative forecast as to what I think is going to happen in the market. And so you can read these numbers, and these slides are, of course, all available to anybody that attends this conference. So it's not going to be bazillions of units like some people have been forecasting. And I also think that the tethered units have a diminished life, and by that I mean that diminished in terms of number of suppliers. We count these things. We've been keeping track of the development of the suppliers, and as of Friday, I haven't checked this week yet, but as of Friday, we had 67 headset manufacturers, or people who are saying they are building or are going to build a headset manufacturer. So that can't exist. No market can support that many suppliers, especially a market that is just in its nascent period and just getting going. So what will happen is a lot of these companies will simply fail. They're underfunded to begin with. They're doing Kickstarter programs. Some of them are successful, some of them aren't. You know, you only get one Oculus a lifetime, so we can't expect that to happen again. And so the ones who don't just outright fail will get acquired for whatever technology they've been able to develop. And so the number of suppliers will shrink, 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 and shrink. And that's just normal, and that'll be a good thing, because once that happens, then the chaos will stop, and the standards can start to get established, and we'll be happier. But as I mentioned, it's really all a function of how much the content is attractive to users. And so that's the big view.
Okay, good stuff. Thank you, John. Let's give John a round of applause, please. So this is what I'd like to do. I actually have a little bit of a demo reel from each of our panelists. So I'm going to start off. Daniel, we have a clip. Daniel O'Brien from HTC. We have a clip of something that HTC did with Valve. And I'm just going to fast forward to the important parts. It's all important, but let me. But before I show this, can you set it up for us, please?
Is this on?
Yeah.
Great. So what we found in some of the challenges in explaining to people what is VR and what is our solution of VR, we really needed to come up with some really interesting ways besides just getting people in the headset. Well, Colin Northway from Northway Games and his wife Sarah actually came up with this method for mixed reality where they took a third controller and put it on a camera, and they were actually able to show both your virtual world and your real world simultaneously. And this was a really, really interesting way to give people in a 2D environment a good example of what's actually happening, of just observing someone doing VR or seeing what it's actually on a display. So, and this is a great example of what Valve was able to actually come up with in their execution of this.
Okay, I'm going to start the video now.
Shot. No way. Oh my goodness, these guys are so cool.
Look behind you, Kyra.
Order up.
Bacon? Oh no.
Is that how you cook for your family at home, human?
It's burned.
Eat those donuts, Travis. Get them. Get those donuts.
Don't stand in the way of his ball. A little bit more toward us. There you go. There.
No, the other way, the other way. The wheels are a little off kilter.
Hold on. I'm gonna get really hungry down here. Little bit of a torque issue.
Yeah, there you go.
Right into the black hole.
What? Can we go into space?
space. No, I can't. The grid's here.
The grid wall here, that's to stop you from walking into the couch, walking into the walls.
Oh, this is so cool. I can move all this stuff.
Here we go. I think we got enough there. Let's give Daniel a round of applause. That's amazing. Now, I could pull the video up, but do you have the Sony video on stand? I could pull it up here if that's easier. Do you want to pull it up? OK, good. So actually, Simon, maybe you can...
Peggy 18.
Whoa.
PS4 for the players.
Good stuff. Please, Simon, without saying a word, let's give you a round of applause. Didn't even need a setup there. And then we've got Alon Melchner. Now, Alon, we have... Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to quickly say about the videos. Going back to what Jon mentioned before about content, obviously at PlayStation we've made what we're really proud of, a very fantastic virtual reality headset. But probably what you can see from here is the experience that people get is from the content that they sample and the games that they play. And this video is just scratching the surface of what we have. But what we tried to put in this one was just show you the variety, that there's things in there from, you know, the AAA core games that you'd expect, there's simulators, there's fantasy things, there's family-friendly things, just a huge array of different types of content already lined up for virtual reality launch.
Wonderful. So please, round of applause. So, Alon Melchner, what I'd like to do is, if you could set this up, but during the video, I'd like you to explain what's happening.
Yeah, so if I may have like 1 minute before, if it's possible, or a few seconds. First, I totally agree about the content. Content is the future of every media, every medium that started, and this is what we represent. But what I have to offer, and this is what's exciting for me, sitting with you, it's an honor, and understand all the efforts that you have done. I think the next step is content, and this is what we want to offer. But the idea of content, all those games that we have seen on Sony and HTC, they cost, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars to create. Now it's possible to create them, I don't know, 10% or 1% of the cost, and this is what we have to offer everyone there. So yeah, I will explain with that.
So let's get the video started here. I'm just gonna...
Actually, Wakingapp developed a platform that any artist here can now start creating augmented reality and virtual reality without any technical experience, immediately. The entrance time is a few hours or a few days, depends on you. You can drag and drop whatever 3D assets, stereoscopic video, HD, 4K, whatever, combine everything. This is our logic system. You don't need to code nothing. You just need to understand a small basic idea of logic. Whenever I'm clicking on the elephant, it will move to that position. Everything is on the cloud. You just save it, publish it. It's immediately online on all platforms. HTC is going to be available also, Sony hopefully soon. You create the content once, it runs on everything without any development time. So whatever developers would have taken like days or weeks or months to create, every one of you artists can do it in minutes or hours or days. And this is what we offer everyone. The platform is for free. You can create whatever scene you want. And actually, we are trying to educate the market. Don't think games. Don't think only games, only entertainment. It may be used in infinite number of use cases. And we have therapists, and we have architectures, and we have education. So I don't want to take all the time for the beginning. But this is exciting for me to offer everyone here and all the artists. Start creating your own VR. Take your own art, place in there, and you have VR ready. And so this is what we do.
Okay, wonderful stuff. Thank you. Let's give him a round of applause. So if we go just a regular slide, yeah, okay. So Dr. Madary, there's no video, but you got a lot to say. Tell us about your work in virtual reality ethics. What is it? Why is it so important?
So in February of this year, Thomas Metzinger and I published the first ever code of ethics for VR in Frontiers in Robotics and AI is the journal. And what we did was we wanted to say, what do we need to worry about? What are the possible risks? And what kinds of recommendations can we make for minimizing risks to users and for researchers? So we went through and looked at what do we know right now from psychology that would be relevant. And there's well-known results from social psychology going back decades that our environments can have very big influences on our behavior, unconscious influences on our behavior. So that's relevant for us here because VR creates a situation in which the entire environment is created by a third party who may not have the user's best interest in mind. So we're concerned about that. Another thing that we raised with VR, there are recent experiments studying illusions of embodiment. So using VR to give subjects the illusion of being in a body other than their own. And one result, for example, found that users who spent time embodied in a darker-skinned avatar were less racist after they left the virtual environment. They performed better on implicit racial bias tests. So it suggests that using the technology will have lasting influence on behavior, lasting influence that may be unconscious. And we recommend that users should be made aware of this possibility. We recommend that users we recommend more research into the effects of long-term immersion. So the research I've been talking about has subjects immersed for about 10 minutes at a time. In the very near future, we'll all be able to spend as much time as we like immersed. And we don't know what's going to happen and what the effects will be. So we're calling for research on that particular question as well.
Well, did you want to?
No.
Okay, good stuff. Good stuff. Well, please, let's give a round of applause. So just by a show of hands from our audience, how many of you think of yourselves as storytellers? All right, good. A good many. So I'd like to ask Daniel and Simon, well, actually all of you, really. Have you seen stories that could only work really well in virtual reality?
Well, I think that I've seen a lot of different medium types, from games to simulations to really strong empathy stories. And Nani de la Peña did a really compelling thing at Sundance this past year with her storytelling, and putting people in a kind of a chaotic situation and having to be the person that was being protested against. And that was very, very, strong empathy scenario. And then, we have other fun scenarios where you are no longer sitting on the edge of being a superhero. You are now the superhero playing the very first, that first-person player, and you have the shield on your back, and you're pulling it around, and you're defending yourself. So there's so many different types of content pieces, from story to animation to just games to medical scenarios that I find that there's more things that we can do with VR than I can't.
Simon, you obviously have a rich history in video games and where they've come and where they've gone. What do you see as far as story in VR?
So I think one major difference that I see when it comes to storytelling in VR is the fact that typically, to make the experience more engaging, it has to accept that you are part of it. You're in the middle of this experience. If it ignores that fact and it just plays around you, you kind of feel completely disembodied, like I think they call it the Swayze effect, don't they? That like out of the film Ghost, that you're just unable to be seen, to be heard, and that seems quite strange. So the fact that the story has to engage directly with you, and then having you as, if you like, the centerpiece for this story all of a sudden, changes a lot of other factors, because suddenly it's more difficult for it to assume how you were going to react and how you were going to feel about certain elements. So the whole process becomes a very, very different thing, and it doesn't translate directly. I think it becomes a whole new skill and a whole new art to create, do VR storytelling, really.
Alon?
Yeah, I'm in a position of a freedom fighter. No, it's just joking, because I don't think it will take a lot of time to solve and to guess and to understand all the use cases that can be done for VR outside of games and outside of, and even if you're talking about script ideas or stories or games or entertainment parts. But we are in the stage now that we really believe in the power of the people, I may say, or the creativity of everyone else, because 1,000 people will invent things that I don't think any enterprise or even creative as Sony and creative, we are limited in the number of creative people we have inside enterprises, but millions of people are not limited, and they will find solutions that we didn't even think of. And this is what's exciting, because new things will come and new ways of regarding storytelling, of thinking and behavior, new type of feelings inside. So this is what's exciting as I see that, because it's open now for everyone. So
very good.
Yeah.
I have actually a unique question tying into this for both Jon and for Michael. Jon, and I know it's cool, and if anyone will say it's cool, it would be me. What are your thoughts on taking existing games and having them amped up into a virtual reality form? Does that still honor the best case scenario for story? Is something being scraped away? What are your thoughts on that?
It's not a straightforward answer, I'm sorry, and it's conditional, because there are some great stories that you can buy now that are flat screen, 2D surface, 3D in dimensionality, which are good stories, and they would translate very well to VR. There are others that are just stupid stories, and the people who wrote them know they're stupid. And they keep writing them because they seem to sell well. So I think that would not be. I mean, who wants to see Angry Birds in VR? That just doesn't make any sense. But one of the first retrofitted games was Half-Life, and that worked out really well. So I think it just depends upon the quality of the game to begin with. Can I interrupt what you're trying to do to ask a question here?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm curious between what Simon said and what Michael has to say, is that when you were talking about suspending disbelief and being the character and getting involved, which we all agree has to happen, I was curious as to how that translated to your accomplishments, where you got people to reduce their racism by being the character. What was the magic that you used to get them to cross the threshold to accept that responsibility?
I can't take credit. It was Mel Slater's lab. I was part of the group, the larger consortium. But I think what happens, the most likely explanation is that it's what we're calling an illusion of embodiment. It's the illusion of owning and controlling a body that's not yours. You look down and you see something else. And this has strong. It seems to have strong impact on our minds. So I mean, in VR we have a situation where you don't believe you're really somewhere else. You don't believe you've changed bodies, but your mind reacts as if you have. So when you try, there's a famous experiment, the virtual pit, where subjects walk across a board in a regular laboratory, but they're wearing glasses and they look down and see this long pit and the deep pit. And they get the fast heart rate, they start perspiring and so on. So even though they believe they're in a laboratory, their body tells them otherwise and they react otherwise, and their mind... Right, yeah. Yeah. Again, not my experiment, but yeah.
Okay, good stuff. Actually, I want to ask a question pertaining to stories. Is, from an ethics point of view, and I know it's not black and white, but are there stories that you just don't want to see from an ethics point of view in VR, and are there stories that you would like to see?
Yeah, I mean, the obvious examples there would be extreme violence and sex. So virtual pedophilia, I think, would raise a red flag. Virtual rape would raise a red flag. Apart from those obvious examples, we'll be able to resurrect the dead. When we create an avatar and then the biological human dies, the avatar will still be there. I think people should be very careful interacting with the avatar of dead loved ones. Yeah, that's right, with augmented reality, that's right. That's right. Body swapping, I think, could be problematic as well. These are all possibilities. The technology's there, and my point is we don't know what's going to happen, and it's best to discuss it and at least warn users to be very careful if they're going to try this sort of thing.
So we've been talking about, video game content, and obviously a very big area in virtual reality is 360 cinema, 360 broadcasting. Some of it's in 3D, some of it is not. Does this 360 content have a strategic importance, a strategic place in the virtual reality industry? What are your thoughts on it? John, I'll start with you. Mike.
Sorry. Well, we make a distinction in our research with regard to the content, whether it's interactive or passive. And the 360 videos that you referred to, which are very, very useful for travelogues, for shopping, for looking at homes that you might want to rent or buy, automobiles, etc. I think that they have a very important place. That's content that will be, I think, primarily free. It'll be developed by someone who has an objective of trying to sell you something, and it's dramatically different. And that's the type of content that plays well on a untethered headset because the demands, the computational demands are not so great in that. So basically, you're just watching video. So the fact that you can turn around whilst you're watching it or look up and down, that's nice. It will have a certain novelty effect. The novelty will wear off after people get used to it. I think the real richness is going to be in interactive content.
Daniel, do you want to add?
So it's interesting. We've been playing back and forth with this, and we are a solution where we designed from the day one that, what is VR to us? And we're going to put you at the center of the content. We're going to put it all around you. We're going to let you walk around, interact with it, and give you complete freedom, right? But then there is 360 video, and there are even 2D video in your VR space. We've actually seen some developers toy around with mixing these different types and actually being in your virtual space, being able to move around. We put a camera on the front of our headset so you could be moving around and interacting and find your chair in the room and actually go sit in it and then switch your experience to maybe a 360 experience or even have a 2D experience over here while you're doing interaction over here. I'm actually really excited to watch the crossover happen and usage in multiple forms. And I think that people should continue experimenting with it. I don't know that in the future, that this headset only supports 360 and that's where it should stay, or this only supports 2D and this only supports interactive. I think creators should stay creative, and very early on version of John Wick was a completely interactive experience where you watched on a 70-inch screen a portion clip of the movie, which was a 2D clip. And it was just really interesting to see how you had this interactive space with your 2D content playing. So it's a mixture, and I think that creators should stay creative with this and continue experimenting with it.
Simon?
So I think, certainly from our perspective, what we've seen with virtual reality is when you work in the high-end space of virtual reality, when you've given people the freedom to look around and move around, get their hands into the scene as well, and really feel connected to that space, that's where more magic than ever happens. You really do feel, truly engaged with your game, and it's a brilliant immersive experience. I think the 360 video side tends to be at the sort of lower end of that spectrum. You maybe sometimes find yourself frustrated that you can't reach in and touch something, or you haven't got the freedom of that world. The good thing is it's the most compatible form of content, so it works across the widest range of VR headsets, and even you can play it on browsers and pan around it and this, that, and the other. So I think it's always going to be there, and it'll certainly find its place, and people do interesting things with that. But I think the fact that when people have tried these immersive experiences where they can fully immerse themselves in a world and feel connected to that world and feel their hands in there as well and their heads in there, then I really think that is quite transformative, and people then start craving that and almost want this 360 content to be able to do that too, and it can be quite frustrating when it doesn't.
Alon, I have a specific angle for you on this.
Okay.
When it comes to video content, and please, I wish I had a video sample, but people could see it, I think, in the exhibit hall. Can you explain how you could use video sources as part of interactive environments?
I can. I do have something I think interesting to add in a way, because we are still thinking of VR mainly. I mean, I think of two senses, like eyesight and hearing, you know. But and even if you regard to movies and things like that, and you are going to be part of that, and the ability the character comes to you no matter where you are in space, and you are becoming part that actors or characters react to you. This another level of engagement or being there. But sound, for example, is great because you can hear something behind you. Naturally, when you are outside and you hear something in the background, you look back and see what happens. So this is another thing. Smells or other things, I think they will be part of this evolution. But but one more thing, we know the evolution of movies, and you know, it started as a one-shot movie, I think, you know, and they had the ability to think about multi-shots or getting into the buildings after you saw it outside. I think we are in the same stage. We don't know what can be done with that yet. Just imagine the storytelling, the combination of everything, when you can think about real character, real actors, real persons that stays in their home or goes to the cinema, and they are becoming part of the crew, of the people in the scene. You know, so there are lots of things that we didn't even start thinking about what can be done with that. As for usage, and this is about the interactivity, we can now have multi-layers of content. They can be, I don't want to say film, but they can be a movie type of content, stereoscopic or not, that really let you feel like 3D. But you can add multi-layers of video. They can be interactive video. The characters can be pre-shot video, or maybe a live person, maybe a live actor that's being presented live now inside the movie, and it can react to your actions inside the movies. And of course, other 3D objects and 3D animals and 3D characters that can interact. So the combination of multi-layers, live, interactive type of content, this changes everything. Storytelling, I don't know who said they are in the storytelling. The real storytelling, the future of how I see that, is very complex. You know, you have to think multi-layer, multi-objects, multi-everything, so, and interactive.
Okay,
so,
very good.
And cooperative.
Michael, I wanted to ask, I mean, before we were talking about like video game or digital content. I know it's all digital content nowadays, but nonetheless. And then we're talking 360 video or broadcasting content. You mentioned in your earlier presentation that you were concerned about violent rape and pedophilia, which, by the way, I don't think anyone wants in any type of content, but I think you have bigger concerns in VR. Actually, do you have bigger concerns in VR? Actually, that's a good question right there. Is that nature of content more impactful in a virtual reality form than it would be in other types of media?
You mean the sexual content?
Yes, yes.
Well, I mean, creating it in VR, I guess, would be less objectionable than filming it. Is that?
Oh, I see. Okay. So let's rewind that question. I was thinking more at the receiving end. I was not thinking about the content creation point of view. so then it's even more objectionable. So you see, ethics. It's a slippery slope any way you look at it. But separating from that nature of content, do you think that the ethics concerns are different in 360 VR content versus digital video game nature of content? Are the rules a little different, and if so, why?
Yeah, I think the rules would be different. Well, I mean, one thing to keep in mind is that the strong emotional responses that I was talking about a minute ago, that was in virtual reality. So it's not like it's not like it has to be video to fool the mind in this strong way. But I guess another concern would be that if it's filmed, I guess if it's virtual reality, there might be a sort of default presupposition that it's a fictional story. Whereas if it's in 360 VR, we can do documentary filmmaking. And there's going to be questions about the responsibilities of creating documentary content, presenting it as true from a particular immersive point of view. And I mean, I guess it's a responsibility that all documentary filmmakers have, even in traditional film technology. But here, I think the impact will be so much stronger that there will be new questions there.
So one more question for you. Products are in the process of being released. I mean, HTC, Oculus are shipping. Sony, I take it, is expected later this year as well. And plus there's all the others. What needs to happen right away? From an ethics point of view, what needs to happen right away?
It's difficult to say because I need to talk further with the people here the next few days to see what's happening now. But I think an open platform, considering the risks, where content providers are in communication with the latest research on this. So we need a dialogue between the research and the industry. I think that's going to be really important. And I think, as I said earlier, at least clearly notifying users that we don't know what's going to happen. It's an alarming situation that we don't know, and I think we can remedy that, but there's no way we can remedy that before these products ship. So at least, the very least we could do is we could say, we have not done the research on long-term immersion. We don't know what's going to happen. Use at your own risk.
Simon, sorry, John, did you want to add?
I agree with him, of course, but I think that the answer to your question is that you are doing it right now. And that is, I think, I'd be willing to bet that most of the people in this room didn't know there was a question of ethics until he started to speak. And I think just the fact that his paper has come out, that we are now, our awareness is now raised to a new level that, oh, this is something else we have to think about. And I think that's the most important part, is to get us all thinking about it, and as he says, talking about it. So I think this forum is doing the job.
Okay,
I agree.
So Daniel, Simon, I'm going to put you a little bit on the hot seat now, but you know, you have content that gets approved, you have content that doesn't get approved in your own stores, in your own platforms. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about the process.
From our side, you know, we gave out our dev kits over the last year and a half, 2 years. We gave them to really smart people that would create some really fun, great experiences for end users. We wanted to work with developers that really understood the mechanics of creating content, you know, understand storytelling, understand creating just something fun. We wanted to create a wide variety of experiences for consumers to all resonate with something differently, whether they were the creator in Tilt Brush and they were drawing, or whether they were the superhero, or whether they are the first-person shooter shooting at the zombie. Some developers have taken a jump scare approach of scaring the pants off people, and they're being successful. When you give people that sense of immersion, that presence, and they're feeling, you know, that threat, that can be pretty scary for people. I ask developers all the time, you know, what they think. We tell developers to play test it as much as possible. Make sure you're not going to cause somebody a heart attack. But, you know, we really did try to focus on just creating fun experiences for end users, things that people would really start to resonate with, things that would help lift this ocean. You know, that was our goal the last year and a half, working with developers and saying, let's create a wide variety of experiences, good experiences, high quality, get it out there, and then let's start lifting this VR ocean up and make sure that the industry is successful. So we kind of tailored a lot of our interactions with developers with that goal in mind.
Okay, good stuff. Simon.
So again, one advantage we have on the PlayStation side is it's a closed platform. So all of our games have to go through our platform level approval process. So we put a lot of emphasis on that point. And again, selecting the right developers, working with them, making sure they're clear on those rules all the way through, and then the content goes through an approval process. And again, in addition to that, we have the independent ratings boards that check everything as well, and we've been doing a lot of work with them in the lead into VR launch. And it was interesting to see that some content, because it was more immersive or whatever it would be rated differently in that regard. So it kind of shows the whole system's working there, really.
Go ahead, Alon.
I must go back. It's talking, yeah. And I know I'm coming from the other side of the games and the limitation and all the thing, but I know, imagine a teacher wants to create something for his students, and he can prepare something a day before, a few hours before. There's no way he can use that inside your marketplaces, especially, even if it's a good content, if it's a good educating, worthwhile thing, you know? And we can go there for lots of use cases. I have a doctor, therapist that is doing treatment for kids, and he knows the treatment. He cares for them. He wants to create something that is effective and useful for them. But it will not be spread. It will not. He will have to do that in other ways. So if it's on a PC, it's maybe easier. We will find ways to download the Excel file or something. On the PlayStation, it's limited. And so again, this is a strategy of a company, and to be directed for games, for example, but other things. But I really feel that it should be kind of like the internet. If you have a good website, even regarding to you, there are bad websites. There are bad content available. But people who are normal, let's say, who are not part of, I don't know, this wants to go into whatever bad content is, it doesn't go there, or it's being blocked. So, but the democracy exists. The possibilities of everyone creating content, whatever he feels fits. Because I was like an agency for 15 years. I was serving or offering strategic solution for clients. I've now become even more modest in a way, because I cannot even imagine thinking or understanding the pain that each person or each enterprise or business needs. Each one knows their own pain. They should solve their own pains. And if we want this, and we talked about the beginning of what will be the end of the rocket for the moon, if it will be closed, if it will be limited, if it's more dangerous for this ecosystem. If it will be free, everyone will use that. Some will use an app or a content with 100 users, some will be 100,000 users, and some will have millions. But if you'll have millions of types of content, they will be protected in different ways, because people are afraid. We are afraid of our privacy, we are afraid of many things. There will be solutions for that. And take the next step, because the next step of VR, I don't know if you call it mixed reality, augmented reality, whatever it is, we are going to live in a mixed reality. As I see it, it's a fact. The way it will work exactly, I don't know. Yeah, but so.
But that, that's why we actually approached it the way that we did. We created a system that, works with Steam VR. You can actually have your content on Steam VR. You can have Open VR. You can actually host the content yourselves. We are working with hospitals. We are working with car manufacturers, designers, architects, medical programs. One of the things that I was just absolutely gung-ho, floored, excited about was, a group that wanted to work with kids on the autistic spectrum to help them, work through modeling situations of like an intimidating playground, right? And helping kids actually navigate that in a safe environment of a doctor's office instead of having to go out and navigate it on the playground. And I was just, fist pumping, excited that this was one of the use cases that we were going to use VR for. And I just want to see that continue. And I do want to see those scenarios continue for developers, content creators, and people, inside of gaming and outside of gaming. And these are, when we think about the content developers that are helping this come along, they are game developers that actually are helping that content creation. And then, so you see this immediate crossover, and it's just fantastic.
One sentence, and this is exactly, and I feel kind of comfortable in a way, because every one of us represent a company and everything. I feel like maybe only you is more philanthropic than we are. No, because we are offering the platform for free, and because we want to encourage people to create, because in this stage, we talked about a few years coming. I think in this year and maybe next year, it's still educating the market. 99.9%, I don't know. You know the numbers better than me. I feel like no one has really experienced VR yet. No one, I mean, except us, maybe. And they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how it can be used. They don't know what solutions to offer. And it costs a lot of money. There are not many developers. You are talking about developers all the time. We are artists, yeah. So I'm talking to artists to create content, not developers. You know, it's just semantics. But this is what I want
to offer. That's good clarification, thanks.
So, okay, I have a quick question for our audience. It's actually a two-part question. By a show of hands, and I know this sounds like an obvious answer, but just by a show of hands, how many of you see yourselves as artists? Just by a show of hands. I know, and we're right place for that, right?
How many want to create content? No,
the other, artists, okay. So then the other question I have is, how many of you see yourself as businesses? Like, you're from the point of view, you're a business, and whatever you do, you're doing it to make a living, and you count on it. Okay. So I'd like to, go ahead. Mike. Okay. So I just want to ask our panelists, when will the artists be happy, and when will the businesses be happy with virtual reality? So John, why don't you go ahead?
When will the artists be happy? I've never met an artist that's happy.
That's a good one.
They're suffering all the time. I used to think that artists would be happy when we could give them enough cycles that they could get a computer to do what they wanted done, but it turns out they really can't be satisfied because they always want to do something more and we just don't have enough cycles. So I don't know that we're going to hit that goal, and I think that's a good thing. I think that when the artist gets satisfied and happy, the art dies. So I want them anxious, I want them uncomfortable. When are the businessmen happy? That's simple. As soon as he gets positive cash flow. End of story.
And when?
Oh, when? Well, zero or never or infinity for the artist. If you're thinking about content creators, people are going to sell content to people who are going to then use the content on some type of a virtual reality device. I would guess that probably we should see some good financial returns within 3 years, maybe even as soon as 2.
Okay, good stuff. Daniel?
Okay, so when will the artists be happy? Well, I've met a lot of artists and content creators, developers, and storytellers in the last year and a half, and giving the developer and the content creator the position to be at the center of the content, giving them 2 controllers, giving them freedom of room scale. I think we made a lot of storytellers and content creators very happy. That they had that freedom to now do something that was never able to be done before. And so I think in that regard, we're starting to meet some of the goals that content creators are asking of us, and we're going to continue to push that envelope, but I hope that they don't ever become too happy and continue to push, right, for how we evolve the system. And then, from a business standpoint, I think, John's probably pretty accurate, but I do think that developers will see returns this year. I think some developers are being very smart and staying open. We tell our content creators and partners all the time, we're an open platform. We're not going to force you into an exclusive. Be very healthy. Be on Sony, be on the Vive, But we do want developers to actually spread their content as much as they can across platforms so that they are healthy, and we do encourage that.
Mm-hmm. Simon?
So I guess from my personal experience, when we first started taking our virtual reality device out there and showing it to developers, which represented the art community and the business community, it was interesting because it was by far the most positive thing we've ever shown to them. It was so much so that you just get people just saying, they try it for the first time, they just say, I never thought this would exist in my lifetime. Sign me up, we're in. And we've seen since people creating their dreams, I think this is the great thing about virtual reality is people often say, oh yeah, what's going to be the killer app? And you think, well, your killer app is living your own dreams, and we've all got different dreams, and someone's going to create them one day, and maybe as an artist you get to work on your own, this thing you've always wanted to do, always wanted to be, you can now do that. And I think from the business side again, the other thing we noticed was many what used to be sort of game developers of old, if you like, now call themselves VR developers. That even at this point, when they're only just seeing VR entering the market, they've already put their entire studios fully into the VR space, and they're that committed to it. So I think a lot of people are already very passionate about it and seeing this as a great objective. I'm not the right person to answer about when they might be making profit or anything like that, but I certainly see the passion that's driven them forward, and a lot of very, very clever people have really sort of backed this horse.
Again, I'm feeling kind of comfortable, to add the other layers, because I'm interested in what research, for example, is being done about potential income from VR and content related to VR, because there are so many business types that can grow now. I can talk about agencies or studios and artists. I can talk about education and schools they can teach. I can talk about all kinds of services that weren't existed until now. This is a new type of medium. It can open beyond the conventional market of games or selling games or maybe entertainment and movies. There are so many options now, and this is, again, exciting for me, exciting for us. The ability, even if you talk about agencies and advertisement, you can talk about many, many things that wouldn't have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars to create a VR content, but now can invest a few $1,000s, for example, and create something every day. Okay, so I'm actually inviting, artists and entrepreneurs and anyone to start inventing new use cases, new solutions, new services, new type of everything. Just imagine schools, how many type of academies in school, and actually we are doing that with all type of universities now, and because in one semester you can start creating like your own VR without being a developer, without anyone can enter. So this is like changing everything, and this is why we are enjoying that more, because it changes maybe even the game, It changes the way we talk, not about the ordinary, normal things, and So it's infinite in what can be done, and this is what we try to help everyone.
So we're just about out of time, but I know the question didn't directly pertain, but from an ethics point of view, you've got a room filled with storytellers. What's your parting advice to them?
Well, the happiness question, I guess, Aristotle's book, The Nicomachean Ethics, is about how to be happy. So that's all I can recommend there. Parting advice, have fun. Have fun, but be careful.
Okay.
We don't know what's going to happen.
Wonderful. Please, let's give our panelists a round of applause. Is there time for a question? One or? Okay, sure. I'm told we have time for 2 questions. So if we could put the lights up, if you could raise your hand if you want, or if you could, someone. Okay, who's raising a hand? All right, one back there. All right, good.
Hello, this is Maurice Patel. I'm really interested to hear the ethics question. I've been following ethics in general, but related to VR for a couple of years, and there's been very little published research in this area. So I have a more general question to the panel, which something that's been on my mind and was brought up by the democratization of VR, where it becomes democratic, anyone can create VR, and anyone can do what they want to do. We look at things that stimulate the mind in a different field, everything from cigarettes to alcohol to some very hard drugs, and we have different regulations governing a broad spectrum of mind-altering substances. VR, the question is, are the potentials of VR from an ethics standpoint somewhat similar, whereby if you're using VR for a medical application, it should go through FDA approval versus entertainment, which has a rather different end-user scenario. And I suppose the question really is an ethical question, is how will this, or should this, be playing out in the future?
Yeah, go ahead, John.
I think you've asked an impossible question, because that's like trying to come up with an ethics question for an automobile. An automobile can be used for transportation. It can also be used for incredible damage to things. And so how would you assign a regulatory agency to an automobile to differentiate on those problems? So I don't think you can do that with VR either.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, there's something we address in the article is that we have to start talking about categorizing VR devices as medical devices and going through that whole process of recategorizing them. The comparison with drugs is an interesting one. I don't think anybody's suggesting that we ban particular types of content in VR. That would be extreme. But what we can do is we can try to develop guidelines for safe usage, which we do have with some substances. So I think that's something that we need to start thinking about and try to work on before people get hurt. Yeah.
Good stuff. So time for one more question, or one more question.
Yeah, hi. I was curious as to how people react when their virtual character dies.
I think one thing we found in the gaming side of things is that when people are playing games, they pretty much know they're playing games. You know, particularly when it comes to PlayStation and that kind of thing, is that you know the mechanics of it, so it's part of the experience typically. And we found no real difference. You know, certainly it's just, oh, I've got another life, off I go again. So it's in terms of the way people perceive it, they're just thinking, I'm playing a game. You know, they're normally sat there with the controller in the hand. Everything's reminding of that fact as well. So, you know, they know the rules of the game.
Is there then a difference between the gaming part and the 380 storytelling?
Can you elaborate?
Well, if you're a character in a film, basically, and you're not interacting as a gamer, and your character dies, and you're really put into place of the character in terms of empathy, and you're really living with that character, and then you, as the character, you die on screen. If there has been, has there been research about the effect of that on people?
So really, in games anyway, you would be the main character, so you're playing that role, and it's a very well-known thing. You know, pretty much every game that people typically play in that kind of genre, where you know your character, you know, one outcome is that your character can die. That's just a known thing, and it's very, very well established. And again, you are just, as you would be in a normal game, you're that central character again, and you're embodying that character, and it's doing your actions. So if you do something wrong and you have that consequence, again, it's a very known paradigm for gamers.
I think it comes down to rules, right? And how you set up the character and how real you want to make it for them. I mean, something like Space Pirate Trainer on the Vive, you are the main character. There are robots shooting at you. You're going to be shot, you know. And at the end of it, I think it's mostly people just being upset that their session is over. There isn't really a challenge, you know, to them personally. So it's up to actually the rules that you want to establish in the very beginning of the game.
John, you want to add?
I wanted to modify the question a bit, and from a personal point of view, anecdotal, that if I'm playing a game and I have companions with me, if I lose any of those companions, I take that as a fail, and I restart to the point where they still were with me and try and find another solution to the problem so that I don't lose them. So I feel great remorse if I lose a companion in a game. That's a lose.
I'd like to modify the question also. It's something that we were concerned about in the paper as well, is not the death of a character or an avatar, but theft of an avatar. So if someone strongly identifies with their avatar, and then someone else with malicious intent comes in and gains control over that avatar, we could expect some negative effects there. So we asked that question too: should avatar ownership be somehow regulated? Tough question.
Okay, wonderful. We've got to end it here. Let's give our panelists a round of applause, please.